Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is the world premiere.
Great morning, great morning, great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. Yeah. Welcome to the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith right here on Praise 93.3. It is indeed the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. Yeah. And for the next 2 hours, guess what? From 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to be talking a little bit about, you know what, everything from society to sports, education to economics, from religion to relationships. That's right. We are here to create a safe space. I'll keep stressing that, y'all. It's a safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, sometimes controversial conversations. Yes. And guess what? You can call in and chat it up with us as we learn together right here on the Culture Call. Want to give a shout out to all of you who have been encouraging me and pushing the show and telling everybody about the Culture Call. It really, really means a lot. I thank you so very much for your support. Listen, and in that, as I do always, I want to remind you, you should have done this by now, but maybe you're a new listener and you haven't done it. So do me a favor, go to your smartphone device, your Apple or your Android, look into your store, and if you search, you will find Praise 93.3 FM, our free 99 app. That's right. You can find it. And guess what? That will allow you to listen to us from all around the world. Definitely in the United States. You can hear me from wherever you are, right? So what we want you to do is go ahead and do that and download it right now. Download it right now. Absolutely. If you're listening to me on radio, if you're listening to me online in terms of the web, yeah, go ahead and do yourself a favor and download our free 99 app, and you can listen to me all of the time when you need to. That's right. And from wherever you are, you name the location, you can hear me. Listen, also, I want you to email me your public service announcements and or your events at culturecall.praise@gmail.com. That's culturecall.praise@gmail.com. And give me an opportunity to be your PR, your marketing manager, all those different kinds of things. Let Lottie Dottie, everybody know what's happening in your church, your organization, your sorority, your fraternity, you know, your music thing, your choir, whatever it is, doesn't matter. We want everybody to know so that we can cause some traffic to come through your event. That's right. Let's pack it out. Let's pack it out and let everybody know what a great time your event is going to be. You know why? Because we definitely do it better when we do it together. And as always, I want to remind you to write down this number, 205-752-4800. That's 205-752-4800. And guess what you can do? You can call in to the show and be a part of the conversation, or definitely you can go to our app, get in the chat, leave me a message in the chat, and I will get it. I'll read it on air. Yeah, tell me that you're doing good, L. Or, yeah, you're stinking up the joint, L, or whatever. Give me topics. Does not matter. We want to make sure that you are a part of the conversation. We definitely and indeed want to hear from you. So do me a favor. Go ahead, sit back and relax. Yeah, grab you some coffee. You know how we do it. Maxwell House or Starbucks. Y'all know what I like. Get you some herbal tea. That's some herbal tea, some chamomile. Yeah, to calm your nerves, or some green tea to give you a little caffeine kick. Or definitely you can get some alkaline water and detox your body and get those cells ready for a great and fabulous day. And guess what? Let's get into the culture. Amen. All right, let's do this. First of all, I want to send a shout out, another shout out to my wife of 28 years. We had a wonderful anniversary this weekend for 28 years. We've known each other since we were in college, but I want to give a shout out to my honey this morning for 28 wonderful years of marriage and 3 children, 4 children. And, we adopted one, so it's 4 children. And I'm telling you, we've had a wonderful time this past weekend and took some time to celebrate us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Take some time to celebrate us. So shout out to the lovely Patrice Morris Smith. And prayerfully, God will give us many, many more years together. And I'm excited about it, right? And thank you to all of you who wished us a happy anniversary. Those of you who sent us little cash apps to help us along the way. Thank you all. Y'all so nice. You don't have to be nice, right? People do not have to be nice to you. Yeah, we learned that back in the day. So yeah, thank you for being so nice and encouraging all of us, my wife and I, to continue in love. I want to say a heartfelt thanks and appreciation for all of you who did that. Okay, good deal. Listen, so much going on. And I'll probably bring it up, some of that stuff that's going on. We got an indictment to talk about, another indictment to talk about. Oh my goodness. We got to talk a little bit about the man who swung the chair in the Montgomery brawl. His GoFundMe has reached up to $300,000 for his legal defense. My goodness, that's to talk about. But yes, so I want to talk about this in these next couple of days. Hopefully, I can do it in a day or two. How about that? I want to talk about something that is very, very essential in our community, very close to my heart. It's my bread and butter. It's my wheelhouse. And has been for the last 30 plus years, and that is the church, the black church in particular. So I want to spend a couple of days because I don't think that since I've been on the air that I've really broached this subject of the black church and its importance in our community and in a changing world. And I want to bring this conversation because a lot of people, especially in this generation, have different viewpoints of the importance, the value of the worth of the black church in our community. Some see it as an agent of change and an agent that has always been about social justice, has always been about championing equality. And then there is another generation now that is deconstructing the black church, and some in helpful ways, some in not so helpful ways, because they feel like for a changing generation, the black church needs to position itself in a different posture to be able to be what it has always been known to be, not just a place of spiritual fervor, spiritual education, and a community development, but a place of social activism in the present, which means that it is asking the black church to relook at its theology, to relook at what it believes and what it has preached and taught for years, to accommodate certain cultural and or societal changes. And whatever way you fall on that, that's not necessarily the discussion, because one of the things I do understand is that we all are different and we all have various assignments, with regards to what we are called to do and how we believe. And if a man does not have the courage of his own convictions, then he is not a man that is able to stand in any kind of place, on any kind of platform, and tell people what is right or wrong. Why? Because he is so indifferent about everything. And so part of what we understand the development of faith, especially in our community, is to be able to believe a thing, have faith in a thing, and stand upon the courage of those convictions. Well, in this generation, that whole idea is being challenged by this whole thought of, well, what if what you believe is incomplete? What if what you believe is wrong? What if what you have built your understanding, spiritual understanding about God, about Christ, about church, its influence, what its doctrine, what it is, its motives and modality. If what they're asking for in this generation is to rethink and to relook at that. Now, let me start off before we even dig into this subject, that I don't think that is all bad. And I say that as a pastor. I say that as a preacher. Who've been preaching for 30 plus years, since I've been 18 years old. So I've been preaching for 30 plus years and been in church all of my life, Pentecostal church to be exact, all of my life, my wheelhouse has always been church. I was raised in church. I didn't have a club life. I didn't do drugs. And not that I was good and perfect all the time. Absolutely not. That is not what I'm purporting. But what I'm saying is I grew up understanding this interesting community called the church. And then I have studied what it is. I am currently working toward my doctorate to understand exactly what that means and what the church means in this hour, not just throughout history, but what the black church means throughout, in this present time, because the hymn writer says to serve the present age is our calling to fulfill. And so one of the things I will say is that this generation that is coming up now is not all wrong, that there may be some things that we need to go back and look at the text, look at our doctrine, look at our belief systems, and probably make room for some things that the culture and the Bible says with regards to, what we think and what we believe. Now, there are some foundational things that are there that I'm not going to touch because it is what I believe. And you don't have to believe what I believe, but it is just what it is, But then there are things in the ways that we have done things as the black church in the culture, in the society, that maybe we need to talk about because we do not have a lot of stance or we don't have the right perspective. The way that we go about doing it is not healthy. And so we need to have that kind of conversation. I think it is apropos to have that conversation now as I believe that we are in a tremendous turn. We are in a tremendous turn in the world, in this country, in our locality. Things are changing. That's just the facts. Things are changing. And we are living in a post-pandemic kind of church. Yeah, we post-pandemic kind of community, kind of world. And the pandemic, as such as it was and such as it still is with us, in some ways, created and exposed a lot of flaws and fallacies and, dare I say, faith in the church. And I think we need to have a discussion about that. And what better place to have that discussion than right here on the Culture Call, right? So let me just start off with a centering moment and talk about, what is the church? Because I think some people think that the church is a building. And of course, if you've been in church any modicum of time, you've already heard this whole idea, this whole understanding that the church is not the building, it's the people. There is a whole methodology and study on ecclesiology, and that is simply the study of the church, the ecclesia, the ones that are called out. And not only that, but I think when we talk about the ecclesia from how it is understood biblically, that the ecclesia is not just the church or the called out ones, but it is also a legislative body when you get to understand it. Legislative in that the people who are part of the ecclesia functions like a senate, functions like a decision-making body, and that's how it's supposed to function. It's a decision-making body in the earth on behalf of the one that built it, who is Christ. And of course, in Matthew 16, when it talks about, and thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, my ecclesia, and the gates of hell, Hades, should not prevail against it. There is a whole understanding that is missing in that text because we're reading it, but we're reading it through Western eyes. And when I say Western eyes, we're reading it through a predominantly feature that causes us to think that we see it with regards to what the nature of how Europeans have created this system of church and all of that kind of stuff. And so we see it from more of a political perspective, and not necessarily how, and not to say that is all wrong, because it is not, but it is not primarily to do that. Our politics is not of this world. Our politics is of the kingdom of God. All right, cool. No problem. Good deal. But then when we get into operating as the ecclesia into this whole, here's another study, anthropology, the study of man, when we begin to marry the two, we understand that men are man, and that's male and female, men and women, boys and girls, live and experience this world in different contexts, in different ways, in different viewpoints, in different fashions. None of us come from the same families in terms of biology. None of us, yes, I know we are born of one blood, but those one bloods have diverged and in so many different ways over time that our DNA, all of those things are unique. They're different. The Smith is not like the Jones is not like the Browns are not like the Johnsons. And all of us grew up in different churches, right? All of us grew up in different systems of understanding. And so because of that, we have to understand that the black church, when we come together as worship, as a body, as a movement, is not a monolith. That means that we don't all see the things the same way. We don't all believe the same thing. We don't all approach the whole, the polity and the protocol of church in the same manner. And I think that's one of the things that's very important. When I grew up, holiness, sanctified is what they called us. And then we got into modernity and now they call us Pentecostal. But that's how I grew up. Well, my wife, grew up Baptist. And so when I met her in college, that we had those two different worlds that were currently convergent. She had some things that she did believe and didn't believe. And of course, I had some things that I believed and I didn't believe. And yet we are married, yet we were dating, yet we sought to allow ourselves to find what we had in common instead of what we differed in. And we allowed to walk out our spiritual life and our religious life together as we learned, as God taught us. And I think that's very important for us to do and have a conversation about that when we talk about what is the church. The church, according to the text, is made up of people which the text calls lively stones in Peter, right? And so this lively stones, that we are human people. Humans make up the church. That when people, and according to Acts, when it says God added to the church daily as such would be saved, he didn't add saints to the church. He didn't add cats and dogs to the church. He didn't add these people who were flawless. He didn't add these people who were ultimately perfect. He added those who were being saved. Soteriology, there is another study. That is the study of salvation, right? And that doesn't mean just the study of being saved, but it's also the study of being safe. SAFE, right? So that's another thing. We'll move on that and come to that maybe a little bit later because I don't want it to turn into a Bible study, but I want it to be a cultural conversation. All right. So all of us as humans who believe believe in Jesus are added to the church, added to the ecclesia. Then watch this. However, in our human lives, in our human existence, in our own communities, in our own bloodlines, in our own facets of environment, we are reared and we are added to particular local vineyards, right? Now, let me push pause right here and just do an object lesson. That if he's adding you to the church, right, you need a church to be a part of. Let me say it again. If he's adding you to the church, you can't have a particular aversion to the church, right? Because and still say that you are saved. No, because if you are saved, he's added you to the church. And so all these saved folks talking about, I don't like church. No. Because you ain't been to enough churches. You may not like the one in your neighborhood. You may not like the one in your community. But that doesn't mean that something should be inside of you, compelling you to find a place of growth, to find a place of transition. So yes, that church is both the people, but it is also a building. It is also a temple. It is also a structure, right? And it's in that structure where we learn the fundamental principles of what it means to be believers, right? Now, I have a particular aversion against the word Christian and or Christianity, just because of how it was derived and what it meant from a scriptural and a cultural context. And so, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And so, I believe that the original calling of the people that followed Jesus Christ was called the people of the way, right? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, all of that. No man can come to the Father but by me. The Christians, they were called Christians first at Antioch. And but they were all Jewish people. They were still Jewish people, but they had an experience at Pentecost. They were Jewish people that they were what we would call today Messianic Jews that found the Messiah in Jesus Christ and they started following him. right? And that following had a particular context culturally, politically, spiritually, financially, that everything that was in their life, that following of the way put them in a particular cultural counterculture with what was present there, which was the traditional religious Jews who followed Judaism and the Romans who followed whatever they were following, who were polytheistic, right? And so, and I say that because that is the same kind of thing that is going on now, that the church is placed in a position to where we are in somewhat of the middle of a counterculture, right? That there are still Jewish people who do not believe in that the Messiah has come. They're still looking for the Messiah. So to them, Jesus Christ is not the Messiah. He was a Jew, yes, but he was not the Messiah, right? And then you have a world system that's polytheistic. They believe in, in all other kinds of things. They believe in astrology. They believe in the zodiac sign, horoscopes. They believe in burning sage. They believe in all kinds of things. There's a multiplicity of other religions and other streams of belief other than what we consider Christianity / the way, right? So we are sitting right here in the middle of this convergence and having to navigate culturally, having to navigate living with each other in a place to where we can ask ourselves, are we being effective? Are we still what the definition of what Christ said in Matthew 16? Are we still that institution? Are we still those called out people that advance darkness, that does good, that goes about doing good, goes about healing the society? Are we offering them, salvation? Are we still that people, or have we become mired in traditionalism, and then we are the new Judaism of the day? That there is no growth, there is no expansion, there is no learning, there is no, and as much as we hold on to our foundation, what is our future? Because if we're not very careful, and I say this as a representative of the black church, if we're not careful, what we're going to find ourselves is being ineffective in a generation that perhaps most need the church in this hour, needs guidance, needs wisdom, needs family and community and relationships, needs spiritual fortification. Yeah, they need that in this generation. And if we're just going to be another organization, or if we're just going to be so religiously pious that we disconnect ourselves from community, if we're not active, if we're not utilizing our voice of activism, watch this, and to speak up for the disenfranchised, to speak up for the indigent, to speak up for the poor, to speak up for the homeless, to speak up for those who have been taken advantage of, then what good are we? If we're going to align ourselves in a political venture with people and parties that will hinder and hurt other people, then what good is the church as an institution, as an organization in the world? I'm not talking about this spiritual ecclesia, this called out, this personal salvation, and we being added to these group of people that confess Christ, but I am talking about as an organization in the world, in the culture. Are we losing our value because we keep falling on the wrong side of what issues are? And I'm not talking about what somebody said. I'm talking about according to the character and nature of the one we say that we follow, right? That a lot of times what may seem to be right, what may seem to be, righteous, falls on the wrong side of what Christ would have done. And so I believe it was Rick, oh my goodness, I can't remember his name, but he's a major pastor in California, Saddleback Church. And Rick Warren, there it is. He started out with WWJD. What would Jesus do? Right? And although that is a very valid question, most people assume that they know instead of studying. And one of the things that hinders us and hinders the church in society and in culture is that a lot of our what we know about God, a lot of our theology is inherited and not investigated. Now, I'm not saying that is totally wrong, but at some given point, you got to start investigating what you believe. See, already as African Americans, we have a particular division when it comes to this whole idea of Christianity and the people of the way. Why? Because it was the Christian structure and that whole idea that fueled our enslavement in this country and validated the separations of people, that twisted scripture, that created a slave Bible that would cause black people in this country and in other spaces to either be colonized or imprisoned to do work, right? And so the God of the people on top of the boat is different than the God of the people underneath the boat. And, the God of the people underneath the boat predated the God of the people, and we're just talking history, God of the people above the boat, above the boat. Why? Because Christianity was already functioning in Africa and Ethiopia way before it got to England, way before it got to Europe, rather. And so, however, they utilized the scriptures and changed it and turned the whole text and the whole church and all of Christianity into a political movement that had some kind of religious undergirding and fed that and began to move in that. And a lot of what you see now is that in this country. And here it is, a lot of what our churches have borrowed have not been authentically Christian, authentically biblical, but it has been a borrowing from the politicized faith called Christianity from Constantine and coming all the way over here that subjugated people and moved people out of their lands, colonized countries, brutalized people, raped and pillaged in the name of what they call manifest destiny, in the name of what they call a divine obligation to do so, that God gave them permission. And so when we fast forward, because I could talk all day about black church history and church history, period, and how we got to where we are, we have now a generation that will not accept the way that does not trust the foundational principles of what the church currently is, because they're saying that what it currently is still a device of oppression. It is still a device of disenfranchisement. And although the people in the church and in the pulpit look like me, they still have the language and they still have the vestiges of the slave masters, the slave owners, and systems of systemic disenfranchisement that we hear it from the pulpit. We hear it from when they read the Bible. We hear it in how they talk. We hear it in what they describe. And this generation, be that as it may, they could be off or they could not be off. Here's what they do they are not afraid to challenge the status quo of what the black church is. I believe that they still believe in the black church. I believe that this generation still believes in the black church. And that's a good thing. However, I believe that there's got to be a come to Jesus meeting, if we can say it like that, with the elders of our community and this new generation that talks about how the black church moves forward. We talk about doctrine. We talk about theology. We talk about, how all of this moves and meshes into the culture. We talk about things like love. We talk about things like spiritual deliverance. We talk about spiritual maturity and development. We have to have those conversations because those are the conversations that need to be had. We've got to talk about money. We've got to talk about prosperity because, again, they have a particular aversion to churches when it comes to money. And we have to answer those questions why, right? So much so that they're challenging, is the black church even valuable for our generation? I say that it is, but it is a major conversation that we need to have in this hour, right? Listen, so that's my centering moment, and we're going to be talking about it today. That's right. We're going to start this conversation about the black church and its importance in a changing world. Listen, go ahead, get you something to drink, pour you some more coffee, might get some eggs and some bacon. It's still that early, and you stay right here. We've got so much to talk about. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3 FM. And we are having a wonderful morning already as we talk about, the black church and its importance in a changing world. My goodness. And what a big topic this is, especially in the time in which we live. And, you know, it's really personal to me because, again, it's my wheelhouse. It's what I've been born to do. You know, it's been a part of my world for a long time. And sometimes it's very difficult for preachers and pastors and people of that ilk to change or to, not change, but to criticize or critique. There it is. To critique the church. And, you know, as if lightning is going to strike us. I think part of our, every pastor or preacher should be also a culturalist. What does that mean? That you should study the culture. That you should be one that understands the particular idioms and the ideas and the particular winds that are going on. Paul was not just an apostle. Paul was a culturalist. That means that Paul was able to write a letter and understand what was going on, the dynamics of the church at Rome and the church at Corinth and the church at Ephesus and the church at Colossae and the church at Philippi. Paul had that kind of, because he was a culturalist, that when Paul was writing, Paul was not just writing about, laws and texts. Paul was writing to a particular culture that was going on. Watch this, in a formerly pagan society, which of course gives us an understanding of Paul, right? That Paul was addressing, these people are converted, but we understand that in this conversion and these churches, we have people who are in transformation or in development from societies that have been predominantly pagan. In Rome and in Ephesus and Corinth, they had been polytheistic, right? And they have been moving in mythology and all of those different kinds of things that, that there's different kinds of gods and Zeus, Diana, Jupiter, all these things, right? And so when Paul is writing, he's not just writing something that can be applied to every place, but because Paul is a culturalist, some things he's talking about simply because of what was happening in that church. Try it again. Yeah, that was happening in that place and that, that sector and that motion. And if we don't understand that, when we get to interpretive skills, i.e. hermeneutics, we're going to interpret it wrong because we're trying to look at it through American eyes and apply it to our own situation, when in fact, Paul wrote it, but he wasn't necessarily talking to us in terms of specific situations and decisions. So I thought I would just say that and add that in there to let you know that this is why, one of the reasons why this generation is calling the church, the black church, back to the table. Because one of the questions was, where's the black church going? Since civil rights or post-civil rights, what has really been the thing with the church in our community? Because, of course, we understood that there would not be a civil rights movement without black churches. The civil rights movement was headed a lot by preachers and educators and those. So there was an amalgamation with regards to our community and how we got things done, how we got laws overturned to open it up for equality for our people. But since then, since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and maybe should I say 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the churches, the whole idea and aspect of what the validity of the church is in the community is a little shady. And that's what this current culture is saying, that there's not a definitive mission. There is not a definitive idea and or ideal that they are in charge of. How can we be a part, of, I don't want to just come to church, lift my hands, hear some music, hear a preacher, say something, and that's it, right? And then I'm called to give my tithes and my offerings. This generation doesn't want to simply hear that. They're saying, what is the cause? What is the cause in the culture? What is the cause that we're standing up for in society? How can we apply this not just to our individual lives, but how can we come together as a black community and move a thing forward? And that is what they are calling out. That's what they're challenging the present context of church about. And if we do not understand that, then those of us who have been a part of the church for histories and lived in another generation and in another time, then we're going to be upset and thinking that they're saying they don't believe in God. No, that's not what they're saying. That they don't believe how I believe. Well, that probably may be so. Because again, when I was raised in church, we were coming out of the civil rights movement, but I never really heard anything about, the church in society. As a matter of fact, in my Pentecostal movement, it was like, come out from the world, come out from the culture. Don't do this, don't do that. It was thou shalt not. It was all that. It was holiness of hell when I was coming up. And it was until I got to college and began to study that I found out, wait a minute, there is still value in the black church, because a lot of those churches in the city were active in the local politics there in Tallahassee, Florida, right? And so I think what this generation is saying is, what is the cause for the black church? What are we connecting to? Who are we standing up for, right? What are we supposed to be doing now? You're asking us to be a part, but why? And watch this. Before you get offended, don't be upset. Guess what? They are right. That just like David coming to the field where his brothers and Saul were facing Goliath and nobody was doing anything. And here's Saul, here is Goliath threatening and throwing out these names against God, and they get mad at David that he shows up. He's like, yo, who's talking about my God like this? And, Goliath is spewing this, and the brothers get mad at David. Now, they didn't get mad at Goliath. They get mad at David because David is challenging. Why would y'all be out here talking about y'all fighting, but y'all not doing anything with all this armor on, listening to this man talk about X, Y, Z, and ain't nobody charging, ain't nobody strategizing. And then he says these words. He says, is there not a cause? Is there not a cause? And when you sit and think of that, just let that sit there. Is there not a cause? And that's what this generation wants to know. We're not coming just to be a part of your numbers. We're not coming just to pad your financial portfolio. We want to be connected to a divine and a righteous cause. And that is powerful. That's a powerful saying. See, I think because I'm a culturalist, I have to sit and listen to a lot of the next generation. I listen to both generations. I believe that I'm a bridge person. I believe those of us who are culturalists are bridge people. That means that we have to learn how to function in different generations. Now, I know how to talk to my older folks about, God and church and all that, but I also know how to talk to my younger folks, right? And that does not make me duplicitous, and it does not make me, a dichotomy when a two-faced or whatever, but it helps me to operate in a duality that I have to understand. That yes, I am called to serve my mother's generation, my father's generation behind me, but I am also called to bridge the gap to those who are before me. And so then that means that I have to have a unique language and approach to how I deal so that we can grow together and be the force in the earth that it was designed to be. But if we don't identify a present cause, then one of the things that's going on in our country now, if we look even during the pandemic with the George Floyd situation and all of that, is that the church, who at one season would have been out in the front protesting, would have been in the front doing something, the front line championing for our young black men, championing for our young black women, championing for equal rights and all of those different kinds of things. In a season where that was once reality, they were really relegated to be silenced in the society, in the culture. Now, but did they speak from their pulpit? Yes. Did they speak from the, talk about it and make it, sermon titles? Absolutely. But the forefront in terms of getting out front were basically this generation. And what they took from that, here is this. Here is what they took from that. Now, don't get mad, Reverend Doctor. Don't get mad, Deacon Brother. And don't get mad, Mother and Sister. Don't be upset when I say this, choir member or praise team leader. What they're saying is, well, if the church took a back seat on the cultural things and the societal things that have affected us, then why should we listen to them and support them? Come on. That's right. They created new movements, right? Because basically we were in the house with masks on. We were social distancing, right? Not saying that is wrong, but that's where we were. We were having church virtually, but they were on the front lines fighting for freedom, fighting for, the law enforcement to be, to answer for and to be accountable for all of the black young deaths that were happening in the street. And to them, the church was doing whatever, was disconnected from that. And that is where we stand in terms of society. That's where we stand and talking about this conversation for these couple of days about what is the black church's importance now. Yeah. Why should I come? I come on Sunday because my grandmama, my mama, my daddy taught me to come. I come on Sunday because I know it's right to do. I'm a part of Mount Zion because of this. But those churches that are not in the front line doing that have been relegated to the back seat when we used to have the steering wheel in our hand concerning the culture, concerning society. Now this may offend some folks, and I'm sure that it will. I'm sure that it will. The cultural context of society, somewhat in what we believe as the people of the way, Christians, is antithetical to what we see the Bible teaches, right? So, yeah, we would stand up for this, but this includes people that we don't agree with their lifestyle. Come on in the room. Don't turn off the TV. But turn off your TV. Listen, turn up your radio. Yeah, that there are some people that we would have to defend that does not line up with our biblical or our theological understanding of what Scripture says. See, and right there, I'm going to call foul. Yes, the preacher is going to call foul on that one. Because we as the church, if we understand, talking about what would Jesus do, we as the church specialize, the black church specialize in championing for the disenfranchised. We champion for those who were indigent. We champion for those who were poor, right? And whether that was the drunk man or the sober man, whether that was the drug addict or whether that was the person that was clean, we championed it, right? And so they're saying, okay, wait a minute. Where's this voice now? You mean to tell me our community is divided along theological lines, and that those theological lines was because we don't necessarily, our lifestyles don't line up with what you believe, with what you think is right? You, in other words, you won't stand up for me because of how I show up in the earth? Got really, really silent. But that's it, Culture Call. See, if we're going to be a societal force as the black church, here's what they're saying. Yes, I would have marched with you during that time for busing. See, you didn't care if the person on the bus was gay, straight. You didn't care what kind of lifestyle. You didn't care whether they were addict. You didn't care if they were drunk. You didn't care if they were an adulterer. You didn't care if they were a liar. You were standing up for all black people. That is what this generation is saying now. Right? And then when you went back to church, you heard very, very little of those societal differences, right? In terms of cultural differences. That was another day. Hey, we all are being attacked. We all of our lives are valuable. Whether we believe the same way and we live the same way, this culture, and because that's what it was. They're taking a page out of the old generation's culture and said it didn't make a difference back then who you stood up for because you understood there was a cause. Now you can vote. Now you can stay and go to the restaurant. And now you ain't got to enter into the back door. Now you can, there's public accommodations. Now you can stay at the Ritz-Carlton. Now you can move into covenanted neighborhoods and gated neighborhoods. Now you can do all of these. Now you got money in your pocket. Now you can work on these jobs. And now that you've got all the things that you fought for, now there's that's another generation after you that's being attacked. And now you're too comfortable to do that. You're too comfortable to stand up, or you're saying, well, before I can help you, you gotta believe like me. That's what this oh my goodness, I hope y'all hear me, Culture Call. That is what this generation is saying. And what I want to know is that true? Has the black church become so inept? Has the black church become so disconnected from community that we only stand up for those who we believe like or who believe like us? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. How are we to do this? Because I believe that as a spiritual foundation, as a spiritual organism in the world, that yes, we have the responsibility to teach salvation, to offer it. I believe that with all of my heart. Faith and grace, yes, in Jesus Christ. I believe as a churchman, that is our assignment, to go into all of the world and preach and teach the gospel. I believe that we are to do that. Absolutely. But I also believe that we have an assignment to dismantle any kind of societal and cultural oppression against people, any people, especially our people. I think that we do need to be from the pulpit talking about what's happening in Florida with canceling out African American history and putting this lie up, right? I think there is room in the messaging of the black church to be talking about that as well. I think that we need to talk about what's happening in the Supreme Court overturning affirmative action. I do believe that we need to be talking about, the society, the police and the law enforcement. And there are churches that are. But those churches are in certain pockets, in certain areas. There is not necessarily a concerted message, because there are some black churches that have believed, or that do believe, along the side of the Western European context, that we all should be colorblind, which is, by the way, a white supremacist insult to melanated anthropos, melanated people, right? That when you come up to me and say, well, I go to church and we don't see color. Really? God made us all different colors, and you don't see color. What are you, blind? Do you see your color? See? And so we're living in a generation that says, what is the cause? That I want to be a part of my grandmama's church, but my grandmama's church have to figure out what is their new cause. And I don't think it's so much of a new cause, because it's still an old devil. Let me say it again. I don't think it's a new cause, because I believe it's an old devil that is coming back to revisit us. And if we've lost our voice called the black church, then we've lost one of our greatest weapons in culture. Listen, I know it's a heavy day, but it's going to be a wonderful day. Absolutely. As we talk about the black church and its importance in a changing world. Keep it right here. Praise 93.3. This is L. Spencer Smith and the Culture Call. Keep it right here.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3 FM. It's the top of the hour and some change, 11 a.m. on this beautiful day. And I'm telling you, listen, what a great day to be alive. You think so? I'm telling you, I know so. Absolutely. That there are many other things that could be our fate, that could be our lives. But because of the goodness of the Lord, yes, we are yet alive. And yeah, we might be feeling a little pain here and there and everywhere. You might not be feeling 100%, but at least you can feel, right? It's definitely better to be seen than viewed. So yes, definitely we are grateful to be here. And definitely I am happy that you are still listening to the Culture Call right here with L. Spencer Smith. What a great day. Listen. So much going on, and we broached an amazing subject. But before we get back to the black church and its importance in the changing world, let's just talk about this real quickly, bring up to some current events. The former president, as of last night, has been indicted a fourth time in the state of Georgia for racketeering and trying to change the outcome of the election in 2020. I'm telling you, Attorney General Fanae Willis is really slamming down the hammer. She is not to be played with, and she is letting all of them know and sending out notice to let them know that I'm coming for you. Yeah. What an amazing time to be alive. Not only that I saw on the news this morning, on one of the morning briefs on, what is that, MSNBC or was it CNN? But nonetheless, that the analyst was just so surprised that there's a great swath of the country that's willing to go to the edge or even over the cliff with their former president. and there is documented evidence. And that is you can call it delusion. You can call it, but what you cannot call it is right? You cannot call it right. And if you are a person that's standing up for that, we have to call into some, we might need to have a group session with you because you might need some help there. That's very important. And that he's still running to become, reelected as the president. Right. That there is something about his ego that cannot accept that he lost. It's in the documents. He knew he lost. And he tells his, chief of staff, Mark Meadows, we can't let the people know that we lost because it is embarrassing. Now, y'all. So it's going to get dark in that world in just a minute. So y'all keep your eyes on that because that's going to influence how things transpire, not only politically, but I believe societally and culturally. Even as you keep your other eye, we're gonna have to be, how the folks say, cockeyed in this hour, because we got to keep our eyes on that, and we got to keep our eyes on people like, Governor DeSantis down in Florida, really pushing this whole abnormal, just a deceptive educational policies from Prager University, and just upending the entire educational system. That I have a lot of friends in Florida who are educational teachers, and they're retiring early. They're retiring, and they say, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to be a part of those lies. So yeah, that part. So there's a whole lot going on in the South. Pay attention to it. You're going to have to use your eyes. We need about 3 or 4 eyes on our heads just to pay attention to all of the things that are going on, because there are indeed a lot of things going on, right? So again, right here on the Culture Call, we want to make sure that you are not late, last, and or lost, that you are understanding, hey, what part do I have to play in this? Because you and I have definitive parts to play in what is happening in the culture. And I keep reminding you of that. And I don't want to ever back off of that. Because, hey, guess what? In a few, our votes are going to be able to make the difference. Yes, our votes are going to be able to make the difference. And I think it's very important that we segue into kind of talking about what we were talking about, which is the black church and its importance in a changing world. Because there was a generation that's looking at and sitting up, listening to the teachings of some of our churches, and it seems like, they're really side-eyeing, the black church, like, oh, so y'all aligning yourselves with that? That same system, that same kind of ideology and interpretation that oppressed us, and that made it, lied and said it was biblically legal to have chattel slavery, that you're aligning yourself with that whole mindset, theological mindset, that makes it, that seems like it's right for oppressive and people, oppression to happen to certain people simply because they don't believe a certain way or don't show up in the world a certain way. You think that you're on that side, and this current generation is not having it. It's not having it, right? Now, there was a difference between what the Bible says and does not say, and versus who we will stand for and champion for their humanity, right? So I get it, that I understand that the Bible says, thou shalt not lie, that liars will not enter into the gates of kingdom. I get all of that. Gates of heaven. I understand all of that. Adulterers and backbiters. And see that right there, backbiters and strife, you ain't going either. Right? So why are you thinking somebody else, you're better than somebody else because you sin differently than them? Check yourself, because that you ain't getting in either. Right? I mean, that's just a fact, right? According to the text. But there is the responsibility of the preacher of the church is to teach and what the Bible says are sins, what they say is an abomination to God, contextually, both in the Old and the New Testament, right? But ultimately, if you start off the conversation with the thou shalt not, you miss the thou shall, which is the most important thing. And the thou shall is if you shall confess with your mouth and believe in your heart the Lord Jesus, right? That trumps all of the thou shalt nots, right? That if I shall confess him, then that means that he's going to help me when he is in me and I in him, going to help me deal with all of the thou shalt nots that I should not do. Right? That's one of our responsibilities. And I tell younger people and younger generations, what you're not going to do is tell me that what I'm going to preach is not right because you've decided to live a certain way. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to make sure that I preach what I believe is the revealed text and the truth of Scripture. However, we do as the church also have a responsibility that if those people are being oppressed or disenfranchised in their humanity, to stand up for them. Let me say that again, that Jesus stood up for the world. He stood up for people that were saying, give us Barabbas. He stood up for people that were literally aiding and abetting of causing his torture and his persecution. That did not, and yet he stood up for them as well. He did it for us all, not just for Christians, but he sacrificed for us all. And that is the job of the church. And that is what this generation is saying. I understand what you believe and what you don't believe. And some of them don't, but a lot of them do, because a lot of the new generation, they come from out of church. But what they're saying is, there's got to be something in your Bible that tells me and tells you and informs you to stand up for those who are being oppressed by a system, a governmental system that tries to ignore their humanity the same way that it did when it made you in its own constitution 3/5 of a human being. I ain't figured out what that is yet. I don't even know what 3/5 of a human being is, but yet that was the law of the land. I'm talking about those same people that says interracial marriage was unbiblical and illegal. Yes? And changed during the decision, the adjudication of Loving versus Virginia. Right? So that's when it changed. Right? I'm talking about those same people that would go to church on Sunday, close out service, and go hang people from the tree, and it would be a Sunday church event. That's who you are lining yourself up with? That's what this generation is crying out. And that is why they are evaluating, and better yet, reevaluating the importance of the black church in society because of what it currently stands for. And they don't know what the cause is. And I think that is fair. I think that is very fair. I think that it is the generation that says, hey, give us a cause. Tell us what you believe. And when it doesn't line up with what we feel that is threatening our mortal lives, that Jesus would be over there saying, well, yeah, y'all doing this, you dress like this and you dress in this and that. And Jesus would be picking out who he would die for. That's not true. That's not so. That's not so. That there were many different people that made up the civil rights movement that emanated out of the black church that did not believe the same way, that did have different lifestyles, that were not perfect people. But they understood that if any change is going to happen, any transformation is going to happen, it has to happen if we are all alive. We can't just stand by and let them all kill us with white supremacy and violence if we don't stand up for everybody, regardless of how they show up, we ain't going to have nobody to preach to. We ain't going to have nobody to give the message of salvation to. And that's what they are saying even in this hour. As I said in the last, before the last break, I don't think it's an old devil. We're trying to figure out new ways to deal with a new devil, rather. I don't think it's a new devil. So we got, no. This is the same old one that we took our eyes off the ball because we, in part, come on, church, bought into Americana capitalistic prosperity. I get it. That, yes, God wants us to have. I get all of that. I understand all of the nuances of that argument, right? But there is a society on the outside of our pristine four walls that's attacking black and brown people. And this generation that says, church, where do y'all stand in that? What side of the discussion do you stand on? Because if you're not going to support us, then guess what? Or if we got to believe like you before you can stand up for us, then okay, don't worry about it. You don't have what we believe, because that would be antithetical to what they believe is true biblical Christian ethic of Jesus Christ, right? Listen, so I want to bring some quotes out because I think it was important to bring some kind of understanding to see what, people say the church has been and to create some tension even as we have this discussion. And this is from Brian Stevenson. Now, if you go to Montgomery, there's a lynching museum and there's all of this. He's a tremendous purveyor of equal rights and equal justice. Brian Stevenson is amazing African-American. But here's what he said concerning the black church. The black church has been a cornerstone of our community, a place where we can come together, worship, support one another. It has been a catalyst for social change and a symbol of resilience. That's what he said the black church was. Here is Brittany Packnett Cunningham. She's an activist, a black activist. And she's a major, and from this generation, here's what she says the black church is. The black church has been a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the marginalized, and a force for justice. It has been a space where our faith and our activism intersect, where we can pray and protest. That's what Brittany Packnett Cunningham says. Here's what Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, that's my frat brother. He's an amazing scholar, an academician. Yeah. Here's what he says. The black church has been a catalyst for social change, a voice for justice, a symbol of unity. It has been a space where we can come together, heal, and envision a better future for ourselves and our communities. That's what he said. Here, everyone knows this guy, Bishop T.D. Jakes. Here's what he says the black church is. The black church has been a stronghold of faith, resilience, and perseverance. It has been a place where we can find solace, strength, and encouragement. It has been a testament to the power of spirituality and overcoming adversity. That's what Bishop T.D. Jakes says. And here it is, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. She is the one that was responsible for critical race theory. She's the one that is responsible for that whole theory, Kimberly Crenshaw. And she says, the black church has been a driving force in the pursuit of justice and equality. It has been a space where we can gather, organize, and mobilize for change. It has been a symbol of hope and a catalyst for social transformation. Now, I don't know if y'all were paying attention to what I said and the quotes that I said, right? But out of the 5 that I just read from Brian Stevenson, Brittany Packnett Cunningham, Mark Lamont Hill, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and Kimberly Crenshaw, right? 4 out of the 5 talked about justice and society and social change and the church being an epitome. The only one that did not mention that was Bishop Jakes, Bishop T.D. Jakes. He was the only one that did not mention society and social constructing, social justice, and all of that. He was the only one that did not mention that. And I think that's unique as we posture this conversation, because dare we all say that Bishop T.D. Jakes is probably one of the most prominent voices, not to say that he does not believe in the church being a part of the social justice and championing for everyone. But it's interesting when he makes up that quote, the quote that was quoted, that he doesn't mention that. But the others who are not preachers and are pastors say and connect the church with its history of being a place where we could come together to stand for social justice. Is a place of what let me see what Brittany said it well. Brittany said it is a space of faith and activism intersect where we can pray and protest. And this generation wants to know, where is the protest? Where is the activism? Remember our subject today, the black church and its place and its importance in a changing world. Right? I think that's important. And I think that we shouldn't run away from that. I think that we have to embrace that. And we've got to talk about how effective we have been in being community and social champions now. That our churches, yes, we do need to sing Near My God to Thee. Yes, we do need to say, Jesus, keep me near the cross. Yes, we do need to be about praise and worship. But we also need a particular societal and cultural structure and cause that will cause us to be prominent, that will cause us to stand on the platform, and not just on Martin Luther King Day, that we walk from Martin Luther King School and down there on the west side and we march down to the City Hall and we have programs on that day, but an active voice and catalyst for community, cultural, and social change, right? I think that is very important. That is very, very important. That if what we do and what we say as the black church does not amalgamate itself into a force, into a pristine system that stands up against societal oppression and disenfranchisement. If we don't stand up for everyone Jesus died for, try it again. If we don't stand up for every person that Jesus died for, then are we really functioning as the church? Are we really paying attention to our assignment? Are we just sitting there standing before the Goliath of our generation and of our age and of our time and saying anything? Why are we not calling to the carpet collectively the people, and beginning with the preachers, who are standing with the former president who is pushing, societal upheaval and a coup d'etat? Coup d'etat rather. Why are we not standing up and saying something in the line and in the spirit of Martin Luther King and in the spirit of those of Dr. Shuttlesworth? Yeah, in Birmingham, we've lost our voice, and the spirit of those who that would stand and pronounce from their pulpit, and anytime they got a stage to talk about justice and social change, have we gotten away from the reason why we are? Remember, Matthew 16 says, "And the gates of Hades." That word "gates" there means the place of transaction, the place of that they do business, the place of influence, not just the place that we sit, but the place where decisions are made. They were made at the gates of a city. So you have to understand the culture, the gates of the city. When they came in, there was a place of business. There was a place where the wise sat. There was a place of direction, the gates. And it says the gates of Hades, right? The underworld should not prevail against us. That means that the church should be moving forward to the gates of the oppression, that where they have locked people up and caused people caused people to feel dehumanized, when they have subjugated people to oppression, to generational oppression, when they have cavorted and tried to change economic laws and rules, entrepreneurial laws and rules. Right? That this country has forgotten why it had affirmative action in the first place. Right? that you want us to believe that white supremacy, racism is all over and it has not been embedded in our structural systems of society. You want us to simply be quiet because now we can build the same houses that you build. We can be your neighbors now. That we can have the same size churches you have now. That we've got our own schools and universities now. That all of that, we got our millionaires and our billionaires now. So now you're equal? Really? That's what we're saying? And again, as the black church, I believe that we are the conscience of the country. I sincerely believe that the black church has been and still is the signpost and the weather vane of cultural change, transformation, and transition. That from the pulpits and the pews to the community, we begin to enact change in various ways. I think that is very important. I do believe that, yes, that there are some that are utilized as in everything. They've utilized the black church and the pulpit and all of that as pyramid schemes. I understand that. To be servants unto themselves. I understand that. And you have that ilk in everywhere, in that every place. And those people who are hirelings will get their just reward. I sincerely believe that. But the true efficacy and effectiveness of the black church, I believe, is still alive, but we've got to come together about what that means. We've got to come together and understand that our theological understanding and our preachment and what we teach is not a contradiction, yes, to standing up for all humans, red, black, white, yellow, that our voices, what we believe in terms of a spiritual reality, cannot be the thing that silences us because people don't show up the same way. People don't necessarily believe like how we believe. Because one time it didn't matter. One time we unified the enemy. We understood what we were up culturally. And we came together to be a social force. Yes. A house where senators gather. Let's say it again. A house where senators gather. That's what the ecclesia is. A place where senators gather. Where people who are decision makers. Right? When Christ taught us to pray, he says, pray, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. There it is. That's a political statement. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In other words, we are to execute the kingdom, the domain, the will of God in the earth. And he says, his will is, I wish that none would perish, but that all would come into a change of mind. Yes. Here's the deal. But you have to understand, see it in the order, that I wish that none would perish, but that all would come into this change of mind, right? But first, you got to make sure these folks ain't dying. These folks ain't being killed. That's what you got to think about first, right? You can't get nobody saved into Jesus, to the place of a different mindset, if you don't care whether they live or die. If you are preaching against, right? And it's got vitriol on it, and it's got hatred on it, and it's got violence laced on it in the name of God, because you're trying to defend God who never asked for you to defend him, because he needs no defense, right? Peter, put up your sword. I need no defense. They that live by the sword shall die by the sword. I'm in the book. I know. Right? But his thing is, I have to die for everybody that they can have everlasting life. I got to do this once and for all for everybody. Now, that's the message that we share, that I'm going to be right here. I'm going to make sure that you live. You got to live. Our job is to live. That's right. Drunkard, I don't need you to die in the gutter. Addict, I don't need you dying with a needle in your arm. Huh? I don't need you dying of AIDS and HIV, sir. Ma'am, I don't need you. No, we say live. Right. We see them in their blood and we tell them what? Live. And then when we live, we cause them to live, we then love them. Because love covers a multitude of sin. Love means that I agree with what you do, but I made a decision to do what is best for you. That's what true love is. That's what it is. And we love them to God, to Christ, out of what they're in. That is the job of the senators. That's the job of the ecclesia. It is not to just go up and cry loud and spare not, which is, of course, taken out of context. That's not our job to tell people, oh, you're going to hell. That's not our job. Because the truth be told, heaven and hell are not equal opposites. Our job is to share a message of life and love and get them and reach out to them with that love and connect them to everlasting life. Connect them to the one that can lead them to the Father. That's our job. But we got to make sure they live first. Your nephew got to live first. Your niece got to live first. Yes. And in order to live, we got to stand. In order for them to live, we have to stand up against anything that's trying to kill them, anything that's trying to limit their life, anything that's trying to marginalize who God has created them to be. Because whether we like it or not, no matter how people show up, everybody lives, moves, and has their being in God. That's the book. Paul told those folks at Mars Hill, he says, you said you don't even know this God, but you said it is in him. Your poets have said it's in him that we live, we move, and have our being. That's not what Paul said. Paul told them your own poet said to the unknown God. There are people that don't know your God, that don't know but it's in him that we live, we move, and have our being. And that we ought to defend anybody who understands. And I know they can come with pink hair, blue hair. They can come with tattoos. They can come with all these earrings in their noses all day long. But that's somebody's child. That somebody needs somebody's nephew. That's somebody's future doctor. And we ought to fight and stand up for them as the black church and love them to Christ. If we can't do that, then guess what? We are most certainly not the church. Yeah. Listen, Culture Call, I know it's a whole lot. Absolutely. 205-752-4800 or hit me up on the app. Tell me what you're thinking. Listen, we got a little bit more to go. I need you to stay right here. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. That's right. With your favorite show, The Culture Call, right here with L. Spencer Smith on Praise 93.3 FM. And it has been an amazing day. That's right. As we're kicking off this conversation, yes, we're just kicking it off. The black church and its importance in a changing world. And I'm hoping that you're hearing the conversation. Thank you all for hitting me up on the app, telling me that you're enjoying the conversation. I've given you a lot to think about. Listen. You have to understand, as a preacher, as a pastor, as a preacher's kid, as a fourth generation preacher, pastor, I'm not new to this. I'm really not new to this. I'm not a novice at all. So when I talk about it, one of the things I wanted for me is when I started pastoring and being a greater part of the church, because I've always worked in the church since I've been 12 years old. I'm invested in not just what the church does in its messaging, but it's also its culture and its place in what we do in society. I greatly am concerned, and not only concerned, but also catalyzed to make sure that I use my platform both in the church and outside of the church in the marketplace to make sure that we are better and that we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. And if I could give a theme for today's, just as we move out, that it's not a theological or ideological debate. It's not what we believe. And I don't want to get into all of that. I don't want to get into, the sciences of all these different kinds of things. And, because we could do that and I'm skilled to do that. Yeah. I want to ask the question that question that David asked while Israel and Saul and his brothers were confronting Goliath and the Philistines. That question, is there not a cause? What is our reasoning for being here? Shouldn't we be doing something? That's what David said. David says, listen, we all dressed up. We all got on this armor. We all sitting here positioned like we really gonna do something. But guess what? Goliath is over there talking smack. And we are just sitting here polishing each other's armor. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow as we continue with this discussion. But yeah, there's got to be something else that we can do. There's got to be something else that we can do in order to influence change, in order to stand up for the name of God. There's got to be a better way than what we're doing currently. And I think that if we don't do that, if we refuse to do that, then we're going to lose another generation. They're going to be disconnected. And understand that this generation is going to have our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. And if they don't have a cause, if we don't help them identify a unified cause now, what's going to happen to them? Are we even thinking about that? Are we even thinking about that? That Goliath is passing policy. Goliath is shouting, but there is not a church that has really identified a unified cause that our generations. And here is probably why. Because we've got to get another level of this is, let me say this. Goodness, I'm trying to figure out how to say this and not make y'all mad at me, Culture Call. But yeah, hey, this is what I specialize in. It's going to take another degree of education, yes, in our pulpits. When I started preaching, and I told my granddaddy, he asked me what scripture did the Lord call me from and all of those different kinds of things. And then as I started on, he said, son, here's what I want you to know, that a good preacher worth his salt has two literary devices in their hands. He says that in one hand, he has the Bible and he's got to study and know that Bible. And in another hand, he's got to have the newspaper. And he got to study and know that newspaper, because that newspaper is going to tell you how to move and what to speak from that Bible, because what you're talking about should be reflective of the times in which you're in. See, we know the sins of the time, but we don't know the signs of the time as the black church. And that is very, very important. That if we read the newspaper, there is a lot going on. And I know that this generation and culture led by social media, yeah, led by Google seminarians and Google theologians and all those different kind of things, that a lot of times I invite that when I'm up, because yes, I want you to look up. I'm going to spell the word I just used. And I want you to look it up while I'm preaching and teaching. And then I'll stop in the middle and say, tell me what the dictionary says. Tell me the word I just used. Now, am I using it correctly? See, I want them to know that I'm not somebody who's just hawking and spitting and talking about saying yes and any all right. No, absolutely. And we need that generation of preacher who can eloquently and positively and sometimes even polemically, like a strategist, like a general, like a sergeant calling people to arms. We need them to mount it to say, hey, there is a cause. Absolutely. There is a cause. There is a cause. There is a cause for us to be at the forefront of this. There is a cause for us to have after-school programs. There is a cause for us to partner with schools around and create and community organizations. There is a cause that we don't have to just do it from our own church all the time, but there are community organizations in society that we can partner with as led now, not just be partnering with people you don't understand their background, but we can help and assist them to be a voice in the community, to provide resources. Yes, we can partner with insurance companies. Yes, we can, so that we won't have to raise GoFundMes or fish fries or chicken dinners to bury our people. But also not only that we can utilize as other cultures have done and teach our people how to secure generational wealth via insurance and how to build up and leave your church even an inheritance via insurance. Yes. We can partner with them and we can put them and say, hey, we have X amount of members. And listen, we'll make sure that a lot of our members sign up with your insurance company. But here's what the rate we want. We begin to be a negotiating voice for our church and our community so that we can begin to deal with wealth creation. Right? See, we begin to partner with healthcare associations to teach our people that sometimes what we eat is what's killing us, our stress levels. Yes, that we can really reverse the effects of what people say, that we don't have to over-medicate. Our community is the most over-medicated community because they see us don't take our pain serious, our issues seriously. But if we can partner with a medicine, and we can partner with doctors and those who understand our psychology, therapists and counselors, and get them to be on staff and come once or twice a month to call the community together and offer up therapy, offer up, ideas and understandings of what it means to have peace and really deal with. If we can make the bridge and be the voice for our community, then just maybe, when we preach our gospel, it won't be hid. Because, as Paul said to the Corinthians church, if our gospel be hid, it is hid only to them that are lost. And so that's valuable. But we can't do that being disconnected. We can't be doing that just waiting to go to heaven. Just waiting to go. Because even when you get there, Scripture says you're not going to stay there because he's going to create a new earth. Right? Yeah, you walking all over God's heaven. You want a robe and some shoes. Okay, I get it. But what about occupy till I come? What about standing up for our children? What about creating systems of excellence and academic, excellence among our children? What about raising the bar of what goes on in our communities? Absolutely. What about creating platforms for entrepreneurs? See, our job as the church is not just to be the one-stop shop that sells Jesus to people who may travel along the way. It's not just a place where we can come and find out about a biblical education and theological understanding. It's not just a place where we have great songs, right? It's not just a place where we can clap on 2 and 4 and have good music. It's not. It is not. It is a place of decision making. It is a place that champions on behalf of what God has given to us to be, Christ has given us to be in the earth. That's to be senators, to see what's happening in our community. And when we see something going on, we call them to the carpet. Give them an understanding, give them a time limit, say, hey, either you change this, you meet us, or you're going to have a community to deal with led by the church, led by Mount Zion, led by New Bethel, led by Spirit of Faith. That's it. That's what that means. That we cannot just sit to the side and allow a generation to figure out how they're going to do it. Because, yes, they have protest. But they need strategy. And strategy comes with wisdom. Strategy a lot of times comes from people who has already done it. I know Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Absolutely. And I know that no man comes to the Father but by him. I understand all of the supposed flaws, and I understand all of the deconstructing of how we approach the biblical text. I get all of that. I understand all of that's going on today. And religious people, theologians are battling out that now. I understand all of that. But as the church, there is a cause. And we cannot sit on the sidelines and watch a world. We cannot allow that again, any kind of political figure that is disenfranchised. I don't care if they say they are Christians. If you are doing things that are anti-Christ, if you are doing things that will subjugate people and look on preferably other people, than some people lesser than yourself, then no. We will not allow white supremacist ideology masquerading itself as Christianity to be the foundation of our black church in this hour. Absolutely not. Will not, cannot, better not. And that's the facts. There is a cause. There is a Goliath that we are facing in this generation. And L, do you believe that the black church is still important in a changing world? You better believe I believe it. You better believe I believe it. That church is not just on the corner there existing, taking up good real estate, but it is there to be a house of empowerment. It is there to be a voice for the community. Yes, it is there to preach Jesus and him crucified. I believe it, but it is also there to say that this Christ crucified would have been on the front lines defending people who could not defend themselves. And that is what the black church has to get back to. And that's what we need to stand for. Because there's a generation that's looking for a church that has a cause. And yes, we have a cause. As sure as there is still a Goliath, we still have a cause. Listen, this is the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith right here on Praise 93.3. Got a little bit more to go, almost at the end of our time, but I need you to keep it right here. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. It has been an amazing morning, don't you think? I know for a lot of you who have been listening to me, it has been challenging. Yeah. Not only has it been challenging, but I pray that it's also been encouraging. Encouraging? What do you mean? Sound like you fussed at us today. No, I didn't fuss. I want you to know that there is a generation of our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren that are depending on us who say that we are a part of the black church, not just as an organism, but as an organization. Not just as Christ's idea, but also an earthly institution that we have a job to do, right? That I believe the hymn writer's song, when he wrote it, it was apropos. To serve the present age, my calling to fulfill, made all my powers engaged to do my master's will. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify. I think that is our perpetual mission. Yeah, I believe that that's our statement of existence. I believe that's why we are here. And so, yes, we have a generation that wants to know before we are apart, because again, and we're going to talk about this later in the week, but I think what's important is that because we've changed, see, we were made to go to church. We were made to have a certain aspect and a certain idea and a certain, a certain respect for church. But, there was a generation that rose up that didn't think that church and participation in church and knowing scripture and knowing text and knowing our Father's prayer and knowing, the first 5 books of the Bible, knowing the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Epistles to the Romans, all that, they don't think that that's important. And they raise children that, didn't have to go to Bible school, didn't have to go to Sunday school, didn't have to go to church, period. That their children played sports on Sundays. That's the reality. That's what we're looking at in the face. And those children have grown up without a clear understanding of what the purpose and positioning of the church is. And you can't get mad at them for asking the questions and placing the demand, because actually, because of that, we have to, I know you're going to hate when I'm going to say this, but we have to resell the church again by re-engaging a community, a culture that really does not know what the church is really about. And the case for that is this. Does the church, black church in particular, really know what she is for and what she is called to do? We have a generation trying to figure that out now. And again, that these children have been raised by people who were so busy trying to give them what they didn't have that they forgot to give them what they did have. That's faith in God. That's commitment and faithfulness to a local congregation. And there we would work together. We had causes and we had to champion certain causes. And then we had to move together. We prayed together. But we don't have that anymore in this generation. It's a new generation. And so, yes, good believers listening to me, as I land this plane today, I need you to think about that all day. Is there a cause, and what is the cause? I just put on my social media that do we think the black church is still important in our community? And 100% I've gotten so far said yes on my Facebook page. Because they know it is important. They just don't know why it is important. And it becomes our job to give them that understanding. Listen, it's been a great day here on the Culture Call. Yeah, absolutely. But we've come to the end. So as my grandmama and my mama would say at the end of every phone call, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the necks. Until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right here on Praise 93.3. This is the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, bidding you a great day. Have an amazing, amazing day. Shouldn't be as hot. And go and love somebody. Make an impact in the world. Peace.